Good morning, guys. So today we're going to be talking about Israel and Jerusalem. So we're going to talk about them together because their history it kind of overlaps and it's very similar. So Israel was a kingdom from between about 1250 BC to about 700 BC. It was south of Phoenicia, which we talked about last week. They were monotheistic, which means they worship one God. And their leader or founder was Abraham. Now, this will probably sound familiar to you because you've all had Bible class. Israel is the tribe or the nation that Abraham was the father of. So pretty much most of the Old Testament is talking about Israel and Abraham's family. So these are those people. Historians use their religious text, the Torah, to help them find clues about ancient history. So I think I say it again later on in this slideshow, but the Torah is the first few books of the Old Testament. Usually it's not the entire Old Testament, but it's pretty much the same thing. It's just the history of the Jewish people. So historians actually use that because for the most part, the Bible is very accurate about things that happened and where people lived and where we could find different groups of people during different time periods of history. So historians actually do use the Bible a lot to help them kind of get an idea about ancient history. So the first thing we need to talk about the Israelites is their movement. The Israelites move a lot. They're nomadic, which means that they move with their herds of animals to find more water, to find a better place to graze, to find a better place to farm. They just move around a lot. So Abraham was told by God to leave Mesopotamia. So he took his people, his family, to Canaan. Like I just said, they moved for food and resources often. So pretty much every few years they would move to a new place because they needed more room, or they needed a better place to grow crops, or they needed a better place for their animals to eat from. They moved all the time. And a lot of times your dad would stay in one place, and when you become an adult, you and your family would move, and you would be close to your dad, but you'd be on your own place. So that's kind of why we see them move so much. They're not really going very far, but as their families get too big, part of the family has to split up and go somewhere new so there's enough room. So around 2000 BC, they moved to Egypt to escape drought and famine. If you want to use Bible stories to kind of back these things up, this is in the story of Joseph when the Pharaoh's having the dreams about the cattle that are dying and eating each other, and Joseph explains to the Pharaoh that his dream means that Egypt is going to have a drought. They're going to have a famine. That's what's happening here. That's when they moved. So when they moved to Egypt, they were enslaved by the Egyptians. That's where the story of Moses comes from. The Egyptians let them go somewhere between 1450 and 12,000 BC. We're not exactly sure when, because nobody wrote that down because they didn't track years the same way we do. But we think that it was somewhere around that time, which I know that that's a really big amount of time, but we kind of have to guess. So once the Egyptians let them go, they returned to Canaan, which was their original land. In the Bible, they call it the Promised Land. So Jerusalem was founded around 10,000 BC. This was when King David united the Israelites into one united kingdom, not just tribes. So for most of its history, Israel has been these groups of families called tribes, and King David unites them into one kingdom. They live under a king, in a kingdom, they live in one place. So Jerusalem was the capital city of this new kingdom. After King Solomon died around 931 BC, they split into two kingdoms, Israel in the north and Judah in the south. In the Bible, we know that the tribes are called Israel and Judah because those are the fathers' names. Israel was one of the dads, and Judah was one of the dads. So the last thing I want to talk about, this one gets a little confusing. They're conquered a lot of times. So people come in and take control of the nation of Israel a lot. So the first people who take control of it are the Assyrians. They take control after the kingdom split into two. So after they became Israel and Judah. So the next thing that happened is the Chaldeans conquered the Assyrians and destroyed the city of Jerusalem. We can see this in the Bible. They talk about the Chaldeans a lot. And they exile the people of Jerusalem to Babylonia. This is another thing that we see in the Bible. And then the third time they were conquered, the Persians took it, so they took what was Israel from the Chaldeans and allowed the Israelites to return. So they allowed them to come back to their homeland. They became the Jewish people and they rebuilt Jerusalem and the temple. So this is, once again, a thing that we see happening in the Bible. That's why historians so often will use the Torah or the Old Testaments of the Bible as a reference for this history. Because if you're not a Christian, you don't believe everything that's in the Bible. But even if you're not a Christian, you can look at the Bible and realize, okay, these people are writing down exactly what happens to them and where they go and what they do and how long they stay there. So we use it as a reference to help us understand the different battles that happen and who the leaders are and what their government looks like, because the Old Testament of the Bible explains a lot of those things. So that's kind of an overview of the history of Israel and Jerusalem. History of Israel and Jerusalem. But obviously there's more to it than that. But these are kind of the main things that happen. So the next time we have a video, we'll be talking about the Jewish people and what their culture is like and what their religion is like. So today for your homework, I want you to write a summary, just like last time. I'll include it in your instructions too. But I want you to write me another 5-sentence summary about what you learned. What of this did you know? What did you not already know? So I want to see what you already knew about this and what you didn't know. So write your 5-sentence summary, make sure it's in complete sentences and that it's in English. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a good day, guys.